we have what I think is a really really cool class. I've been looking forward to it. I've been looking forward to meeting this guy, and I just met him in person about an hour and a half ago, 2 hours ago. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Joe Ivanke. But tell him who you are. Where'd you come from?
My name is Joe. I was a police officer in LA for about 28 and a half years. Funny enough, how I ended up here was I watched a lot of your class's videos on YouTube, and I really appreciated, everybody who comes up here and volunteers, everybody who's willing to challenge the way they think. And I wrote this guy an email saying, hey, thanks for making the world better. And then we started talking, and now here I am.
And here you are. And I said, hey, you got to come out. Or you said, hey, I could come out. And do you remember what the first class was that you watched? Do you have any idea?
I think it was one of the ones on police shootings and what people think and how many shootings there are and just everything, and then just watched another class and one thing led to another, and
then here you are. And gentlemen, quick, can you introduce yourselves?
Just my name.
Yeah, your name or your background.
I'm Lewis, majoring in criminology, minoring in political science, and I want to be like a state trooper. So.
And your father is a retired?
And my uncle, yeah. My father was a K-9 cop for 20 years, yeah.
All right, cool.
I'm Beck. I'm a sophomore, majoring in criminology, minor in political science, and I want to work as a federal agent.
And you have parents also?
Yeah, my dad was a West Virginia state trooper and then got hired by Homeland Security in 2001.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the two of you are up here because I really just felt like it'd be really nice to have the perspective of two people who want to go into policing and who have lived around policing. And it's nice, I always like to have that as a perspective. And it's really interesting that we're talking about policing and we have four white guys up here talking. So that doesn't escape me at all if you're watching on the stream. Four white guys talking about policing. But, four white guys who have something to say also. So here we go. Let's do the, and one policeman's story. So what's really important is we're going to first talk about some policing issues, but this is Joe's story. And there are a lot of stories to tell, but we're going to tell Joe's story. Okay? Hey, can we go to the first slide? So freedom and democracy. I just want to start. I always like to start with this idea that, people have a natural skepticism of the police and the military because you will represent state power. And, this is and people are thinking about freedom. And, it's like, dude, y'all are going to be the ones that take it away. In truth, it's not. People are going to willingly give their freedom away, but that's another story. How do you think about that as police? How do you think about that as a cop?
One of the reasons I became a police officer, so growing up, I was heavily into punk rock, and cops used to always break up the concerts and all that stuff. And I thought, you know what? Maybe I can be the cool cop.
Wait, were you a kid that was standing around saying, fuck the police?
I would sing those songs and walk around with mohawks, but I still always respected the rule of law. And then what I truly realize is what we all see, no matter what the message is, we had to be out there and let people say the message.
Yeah.
We had to let the protest happen as long as it's peaceful and as long as they're doing it legally and lawfully. So for us, we're probably the most protector of free speech and freedom.
Yeah.
And I really value that and valued it. So for me, I can see the perspective of it, because even when we take somebody's freedom away, I held that in high regard. I made sure that reasonable suspicion, probable cause, and even at that point, I have no determination whether people are guilty or not.
Yeah.
And if their freedoms are completely taken away, that's the court's place
But
to
even
decide.
if you so, quite often, like, you mean, you're taking someone's freedoms away, but they've done something, A, or B, you're protecting someone else's freedoms by taking the freedoms away from this person, and that's a lot of what people miss.
And 9 times out of 10, you know, like, I don't know, we can use, if this young lady accuses this young man of a crime, and I don't take him away, and I say, you know what, I don't believe you. How's she gonna feel?
Yeah.
You know? But then when I take this guy away and he didn't do anything, how does he feel? So it's just, like I said, I always believe a police officer's job is to get people in a space to determine whether somebody is guilty or innocent. I don't determine that.
Yeah.
So if she tells me he did something and there's enough reasonable probable cause, because reasonable suspicion goes with probable cause, for me to take him to jail, I take him to jail. And then when it goes to a court system, then there has to be a beyond a reasonable doubt for them to be convicted. So I've taken people to jail that I thought were innocent. But I can't tell this person, like, there's enough, you know, the person accused another person of a crime. I didn't believe it happened, but I didn't have enough information to disprove it at the time.
Yeah.
So I don't have options. You know, I got to say, all right, well, let the system decide.
You know, this is one of the things that people who are not involved in policing, or who don't know about policing, or don't talk to police, or don't know, like you guys, right? You grow up with this. They don't see the gray area that people are dealing with all the time, this grayness. And that's, it's unfortunate, right? Because we think everything is black and white. And we think that you all see the world as black and white and not gray in the way that you just described it as gray. So here, let me go to a few more things because I want to go to the next slide. So one of the things, a big issue, and you know, and recently, I mean, really in the past many years, has been the number of people who are killed by the police. And since 2015, you know, in 10-year time, starting in 2015. First off, I told you that I've been in rooms full of police officers, and without showing them the number, I asked them how many people per year are killed by the police. And some people answer numbers, you know, like 10,000, 20,000. Like, they don't know, people don't know either. And the number is a little over 1,000. But when I see these numbers, it's just the 10,000, that's a lot of people, okay? But then I look at the next numbers, and I think, yeah, but you all are like, you will be, right? But you have these contacts with people, you know, 60 to 65 million a year, and many people feel like that's a low number. There are lots of opportunities for things to go wrong. That 60 to 65 million is a lot, and then 10 million arrests. So when you see that, when you see those numbers, what do you, as a police officer, what do you see?
I
What do
mean,
you think?
I see the reality of it. I mean, as you will see, I don't know, do they know what they know my story?
No, they don't know.
Can I reveal it?
No,
Okay.
not yet. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
I've had, I don't know how many contacts with people my whole career. You know, it's such a rarity. I mean, things make the news because they're rarities that happen. That's just the facts of things. Things that happen every day, things that happen all the time don't make the news.
Yeah.
And funny enough, I had this discussion with my brother the other day. Every news person skews, whether intentional or not, skews the story. So it's such a small amount of times, a percentage of times that a shooting happens. And when they do happen, there's, you know, it's everybody's different story, everybody's different reaction, nobody knows.
And it's always tragic.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, in my belief, and for me especially, I didn't get in this career to hurt anybody. I don't think anybody I've ever met got in this career to hurt anybody. Unfortunately, you sometimes have to. Sometimes, you know, you'll see, I see it all the time where you see somebody get thrown to the ground real hard. And people are like, why did they throw that person in the ground so hard? because you don't know how this person, like if I'm going to grab this person and throw them to the ground, I don't know if they're going to resist or not. So if I don't come in with full force, it might not happen, or I might get hurt. So you come in with a lot of force, and then they don't react at all, and they go limp, and all of a sudden it looks like you slammed somebody to the ground. So, I don't know, just like I think of all people in the world, most general, I don't think a lot of people go through the world with malcontent or
Hey, let me ask you a question, though. When that happens, when we're going to talk about bad cops in a second, right? Bad cops, like people who enjoy throwing people to the ground, even if they're not resisting. But when that happens to you, how do you, what happens in your head? Like, you're arresting me, I don't resist, you're thinking I might resist, you use a little extra force on me. What happens to you?
I'm a whole different beast. I expect people to resist. I understand the impact of a uniform. I give people space to have that impact. If I'm going to grab you and somebody pulls away, I expect people to pull away, so I don't have that initial, like, oh, they're trying to fight me belief. I love being a cop. I'm retired now, by the way. I love the profession. I think.
What do you love about it? What do you love most about it?
You know, there's people out in the world that are willing to go into places, do things, and put their life on the line for people they don't know. And they do it daily. And they're willing to, like, you know, when I'm driving down the street and somebody says, fuck the police, I take it as an honor because I know that person feels safe to say that to me. Because they know I'm not going to go beat them up. They're not going to say that to some random dude or somebody that they fear. They feel safe enough to say things to me. Or when you see the protests and all those people are there yelling in the cop's face, those people feel safe enough to express themselves because they know they're not going to get beat up for generally no reason. And it happens. People do get, and you know, nobody enjoys it. Every fight I've gotten into, every incident I've gotten to, I've ended up in the hospital too. I've gotten hurt too. And the older I got in my profession, it hurt even more. So I never wanted to get to that point.
Yeah.
So I was a talker, and I loved the profession so much that I was willing to risk my life for it. I was willing to treat 10,000 people wrong and have one person kill me than worry about that one person that's going to kill me and treat 10,000 people wrong. So,
how different are you than most police? What's your gut feeling? And you answer this fairly quickly because I want to get to the next slide.
You know,
just from your perspective.
For a lot of my time in my career, I always thought I was doing it the wrong way, and I realized, you know, I was doing it the right way. I'm in generally, like, just my whole focus and things, like, people always tell me that, well, you know, it's like nobody ever called me by titles. Everybody always called me Joe, you know, not a title guy, you know, I just love being out there and making an impact on people's lives.
Mm-hmm. Hey, can we go to the next slide? When we talk about deaths by police, people immediately assume people who are unarmed, because that's what we talk about. But in fact, you know, 95% of the time, people are armed. And 5% of the time, they're unarmed. And every person who's killed, by the way, is a tragedy, okay? It's especially unarmed people. And we look at these numbers, and you see that, and black people are more likely to be killed by the police. And so you hear that, we hear that, and in many ways, the black community has spoken up about this to say, look, man, this is a problem. And it's a problem we need to address as a society, and it's a problem that police need to address. And my question to you is, how often did you talk about that among other police officers? The fact that black people were disproportionately, right? Because clearly more white people are killed, but there are many more white people. How often do you remember having that conversation with police?
Amongst us, like just talking?
Yeah, amongst you.
Well, we...
Like of racism, and it's like, dude, we got to check ourselves. And
you know, none of us, well, like I said, none of us really, of course, everybody's a hero of their own story. Nobody believes they have biases. Nobody believes they are racist. You know, and 9 times out of 10, like I said, she accuses him of something. I'm not the instigator of it. Or somebody calls me to go somewhere. I'm not the instigator of it. I'm not generally the starter of it. Now, how things work out, you know, I think it's how you look at things, how people look at things, your history with whoever you are.
So let me ask you this in this way. When you hear that there's bias on the part of police, right, and that they're more likely to be violent toward people with darker skin, because it's not just black, it's also people with darker skin. How often did you stop and look in a mirror and go like, damn, Joe, is that me? Like, I gotta, shit, right? Because the idea is that activists are like yelling at the police, and the police are just like, yeah, get lost.
Well, I
like,
mean, that is a prevailing attitude. Like you don't know me. Like I'm judged based off the clothes I'm wearing.
Yep.
You know, that's what I'm judged off. You don't know Joe. And if you knew Joe, you love me. So, I mean, I think a lot of it's that, where people believe that. Like I said, it's that reaction, and I think some of it happens. I don't know, because I personally have never run into what I believe is a racist cop. But on
you personally have,
but on that,
you've seen it.
But on that same aspect, I've seen guys I've worked with who we have a description of, you know, male Hispanic, white T-shirt, khaki pants, and they're stopping every male Latino that looks like that, even when you know that's not the guy. Like, come on, this guy's coming out of a restaurant. You know that's not the guy. So.
But you're doing it anyway. See, like a lot of people would say, okay, well, that's racism.
And that's a problem. So I don't know. Like I said, I think I was talking about it earlier. I think people sometimes have bad actions with good intent. Like, I think these guys, they just want to catch the bad guy. So they're catching everybody, but at some point you become the asshole, you know?
Yeah.
And like, why are you still doing that? So is it unintentional bias? Is it real bias? Because it's so individualized.
Yeah, okay.
We had this conversation earlier. I am a real individual act person.
Yeah.
So it's really hard for me to generalize a group.
No, that's good. That's good. No, you only go by what you see, but the problem is, you know, people aren't walking in. When you made that comment, it's like, I don't know, I don't engage with racist cop, but no one. First off, we'd have to unpack that for a long time. What you really mean by that? Because I know that we were just talking about it. But can we go to the next slide? Police get a lot of training on how to do. We have this idea that we just turn police loose, and we all don't get training for how to de-escalate, how to do things, and like, there's a lot of training that goes into it.
Yeah, like in the state of California, you're required to update your training every couple of years. You have to go through certain things. You have to go through so many hours, and they keep adding more stuff. Like, you got to go to implied biases training. You got to go through no shoots.
So you're in the training, de-escalation training.
Yeah, de-escalation training. You have to learn to take a step back. What they call it tactical communication, how to talk your way down from things.
Which some people, I'm sure, do better than others.
Yeah. I mean, some people aren't good talkers. Some people, like I said, everybody's so individualized anyway. And in police work, there's so many, like, everybody's bringing their life experiences with them.
Yeah, yep.
No matter who you are, you're bringing it with you. And if you, like, like I always say, like even with the, like people always say, oh, I don't have any biases, but everybody does because that's the way we're made. Like when somebody saw the first saber-tooth tiger eat the person walk out of the cave, the next guy that walked out said, anything that looks like that, I'm afraid of it. So if you don't have experiences and all you saw was something on TV and then you go out and you experience negativity with whatever you're seeing, you start building that in your brain.
Right, including negativity with police,
Yeah.
right? Because when you come to associate the idea when police show up, bad things happen.
Yeah.
And if I'm innocent, police show up, bad things happen. So I develop a natural inclination, dislike.
Yeah, it's your brain. It's how we survive. It's what people do.
So, by the way, 60 officers killed yearly is, that's
And if you talk to police officers, they think everybody wants to kill them and everything, and they're afraid, and people always want to kill them. People always want to hurt them.
But you weren't like that.
No, I mean, I drove around in a big car that said police with lights and stuff. If anybody wanted to hurt me, I'm easy to find.
So you
And-
didn't go. So you, for whatever reason, were able to have this idea, maintain this idea. Look, it's not likely. Let me just relax. Let me not take that. I need to be afraid of everybody.
People aren't. I love people. I think people are fantastic. I don't believe people have malintent to others. They sometimes do malintent actions, but even then, I think sometimes they do it with their belief of positive reasoning. I mean, so I always believed that I could get to the other side without violence.
Got you. Yeah. Okay. Can we go to the next slide? Okay. So listen, you got 1 million sworn law enforcement officers in the United States, right? Some cops are jerks, man. Right. This is that case in Phoenix just last week, right? Just some of them. There's 1 million people, man. Some of them are just gonna be just bad eggs. And how do you, as a cop, like, how do you think about that? Like, yes, some of these people are just like, they shouldn't be cops.
Well, it's interesting because I've been with police officers in certain situations that I didn't want them there because they're not personable people. Sometimes they're assholes, but they're good cops. You need them in other situations.
Yeah.
You need people like that in some situations. The problem is they bring that attitude to every situation, and that's where I think some problems happen. I don't know this story, but I read it, and it's interesting to me because I was sharing with Sam earlier. My parents are deaf, and I remember growing up and police officers pulling us over and trying to give my dad or something instructions, and he doesn't hear it, so he doesn't know. And, I remember I was working with somebody one day, and I was walking up on a car, and I saw a guy digging through, the glove compartment and doing a bunch of stuff. And 9 times out of 10, that's a red flag for everybody. But there was something I noticed about his actions. I'm like, oh, this guy's deaf. So I just walked up, and I started signing to him, and he's like, oh, yeah. I'm like, hey, can you just relax with your hands? Because we're scared. 9 times out of 10, people are out there scared of the police. Police are scared of people, and 2 scared people make bad decisions a lot of time.
And you go back to police are in these situations where bad things can happen. And people are in situations where police can do bad things. And everybody is skewing the numbers at some level because you got 60 to 65 million police encounters. 10,500 go bad in that way. And then police wrongly beat up other people and do really just bad, shitty things to people, right? So they go wrong. But the vast majority don't go wrong. But we're afraid of the ones that do. The police are overly afraid of the ones who are the relatively small number of times that people are going to attack the police. And I'm not like, dude, it's like every death, every wrong thing is a tragedy in its own way. But as a sociologist, but the problem is when everybody's acting on the basis of a a relatively small number of actions, we create lots of really bad situations.
Yeah, everybody, you know, like I said, police think it, everybody thinks it, everybody thinks the world is a certain way. I generally try to judge the world that I live in.
Okay.
I think people are fantastic. I generally have not been the victim of a crime. At police work, you know, people didn't usually fight me. People usually went with the program.
So here, let's go to the next slide. So here's the thing, right? Given what you're a talker, right? So that's you in the photo. And that's you talking to somebody who,
This was a homeless lady that wouldn't leave. Like, she was on the school campus, and the school didn't want her there, and they kept trying to get rid of her. And, you know, they were trying to get rid of her, and I just sat down and had a conversation with her to figure out how can we help her. You know, it's like you do with kids. You bring yourself to your level. So I brought myself down to her level and had a conversation. Now, police officers around the world will probably see this and say, why does he have a gun on her side? Why is this? That's unsafe. You know, I live my life and I did my job with, you know, I knew that this lady tried to fight me. Really? Come on, I knew I probably could defend myself. The officer that happened to take the shot was standing right there because they thought it was weird that I sat down and talked to her. So I was willing to put myself in what people considered unsafe situations for the good of she's going through a tragic time. She needs help. She doesn't need somebody to arrest her for trespassing, you know.
she doesn't need someone to come, just to come at her hard.
Yeah,
but here's the question I want to see. Like, look, someone might say, hey, but why you're showing this photo? And the problem is, in your career, there's so many things you're doing that are like this that people don't see either.
And minutes apart. Like, I could go from this to something in 10 minutes, go to, you know, a fight, a shooting, a stabbing, back to this 5 minutes later. So it's a roller coaster ride for police officers anyway. That's probably why a lot of them die early with heart attacks. Your heart rate's going up and down, and you know, and you have to be able to, I don't know, anybody plays sports, a lot of sports nowadays, you know, you strike out, you got to shake off that at bat and go to the next one, and you got to be able to do that consistently every minute sometimes. Like, it's just like,
you were right, you're out in LA, so there's a lot of stuff going on in LA.
On perception, there's a lot of stuff, but then
there's also a lot of this stuff.
I had lazy days too, where I drove around for 10 hours and did nothing.
Guys, gentlemen, do you have any questions for him, Henriette? Okay, we're going to bring you in at the end. So you just get you got a front row seat here because I want. Can we go to the next slide? So April 12th. So we're going to show a video. So we're going to show people a video from this event. But this was a day that really just changed your life.
It has had a grand impact on my life the last, almost 6 years now. That day I found out the person I thought for 25 years in my career that I thought I was, found out I wasn't.
And just can you give us a preview of what as we go into what you discovered?
You know, when you do the job, and one of the questions you always wrestle in your mind, if it comes down to it, if my life or somebody else's life's in danger, can I pull the trigger? And I was always, I could do it. Can I reveal it now? Or still watch the video? On this day, I had to. And what I found out as you can see. It had a grand impact on me. It made my life different. And people go through this, and you know, I didn't think it would, and it did. It had a really big impact on my life, and we'll go through it, I guess.
Yeah, we'll talk about
after. but-
Yeah. All right, we're going to watch the first part of the video.
Includes the use of adult language and violence. Because of YouTube's terms of service, we are required to censor parts of this video with a blur. On the morning of Thursday, April 12th, 2019, a man parked his white Kia minivan outside of dry cleaners in Los Angeles, California. His vehicle is parked outside, still running, as he was only going in for a few minutes. At the same time, a woman, later identified as Keisha Henderson, walked by the dry cleaners and saw the vehicle running and unattended. She jumped in the vehicle and took off. The first reported accident came from a dash cam from a civilian's vehicle on Vermont Avenue and Rosewood Avenue. As the driver enters the intersection, they witness Henderson fail to use her brakes in time, causing an impact with the vehicle in front of them. The vehicle that was hit stops in the middle of the street. Henderson hits that vehicle multiple times in addition to at least one other vehicle as she tries to escape the scene of an accident. Henderson continues driving down the street, hitting multiple vehicles within a school zone before turning off Vermont Avenue.
911 emergency operator 975. So there's a total of at least 4 cars that were struck and that were involved. Oh, there's 5.
Oh, 5 cars.
5 cars. Yes.
So it is a hit and run?
Yeah.
She hit mine. Mine wasn't as bad, but it was nonetheless a hit and run. And I got her license plate number.
Okay.
If I didn't catch her, I would have beat her down to a pulp.
Okay, well, sir, you don't want to hurt nobody. I understand that you're angry.
Oh,
because you
sorry,
hit the car. But let's start by asking you where you're at.
Henderson drove away from Vermont and First Street before parking the Kia minivan and walking up to another individual, a man sitting in his car. After he opens the door to talk to Henderson, she attempts to steal his car. He fought her off, but was stabbed by a screwdriver she had in her possession. She got back in the Kia and drove away. At around 2:30 p.m., while traveling south on South Bonnie Brae Street, Henderson moves into the northbound lanes before hitting multiple cars. The Kia is totaled. She attempts to steal another vehicle, but is unsuccessful. She runs away on foot. A block or two away, at a local grocery store, Henderson sees a man talking to a friend outside his Chevrolet Avalanche. She jumps into the truck and takes off. At 2:48 p.m., the stolen Chevy Avalanche is recorded by a pawn shop security system, driving north towards South Alvarado and Valley. At the same time, London H., a pedestrian, opens her rear driver door to get something from her parked vehicle on South Alvarado Street. The Avalanche approaches the intersection of South Alvarado and Valley. The driver decides to make a U-turn. London H. was thrown to the ground by the impact. She was able to make her way to the sidewalk where multiple concerned citizens checked on her. Local school police officer Joseph Ivankay was driving past the area and noticed something happened. He approaches the vehicle to assess the situation. Around the same time, Henderson makes an illegal U-turn at South Alvarado and West 3rd Street, hitting another pedestrian who is walking in the crosswalk, breaking his leg. She then hits another vehicle. Henderson speeds back towards South Alvarado and Valley.
Here I come.
Hey, so you just happened to show up here, right? Like you.
Yeah, I was just driving down the street. I had some uniforms to pick up at the shops. I was just running an errand to go pick up uniforms. Just driving down the street, had no idea any of this happened. No clue. And I just saw what appeared to be an accident on the side of the road. Didn't even know the young lady was hit. Just saw her car smashed. So I stopped to get out of the car, and I saw her. She was standing on the curb, looked fine, and she said, "Hey, that car just hit and ran me." And as I was, prior to me getting there, as I was approaching, I saw some people running across the street, and it didn't look like normal running across the street. It looked different. So I thought people ran up a street. So I thought, oh, the car that hit her took off and went up that street. So I started to walk in the street to try to figure out the name of the street. I thought the car went out down, and I was just going to put out the traffic. Hey, we have a hit and run. Vehicle fled, down Valley, I believe the street was.
And it was more than a hit. I mean, the driver tried to kill the woman in her car. I mean, she wasn't just trying to take the door off.
And like you heard in the video, she was crashing into multiple cars. She stabbed a guy. The car that she tried to attempt before she fled away, she attempted to stab that woman and barely missed her head, like scratched her head, like put an abrasion on her head. She was she was aiming
To and
Yeah.
although that you didn't, can we watch the rest of the video? So now this is where she comes back. And
After
and none
Keisha
of-
Henderson hits London H with the stolen Avalanche, Henderson drives a block away before making another U-turn to head back. Officer Ivan K. is currently standing in the street near London H's car. He's using his radio to call in the hit and run. He is unaware that the truck is on the way back until it's too late. Henderson turns the Avalanche towards Officer Ivan K., purposely turning the truck on a crash course with the officer. At the last second, Officer Ivan K. hears the truck with enough time to brace for impact. The truck hits Officer Ivan K. in the leg. Henderson tries to run over Officer Ivan K. over again, purposely putting the truck in reverse before stepping on the gas, attempting to pin Officer Ivan K. between the truck's grill and the wall. Officer Ivan K. was barely able to miss the impact with the truck. He pulls out his police-issued firearm as she has attempted to hit him twice in under a minute. He is talking to her about turning off the truck and asking her to sit and wait a minute, to take a deep breath.
Shoot that bitch! What the fuck is fucking guy? Oh shit.
Henderson continues to yell at Officer Ivan K., saying that he won't shoot her. She opens the driver door with the screwdriver visible. Officer Ivan K. repositions himself to block her from escaping, as well as to de-escalate the situation. It is now that the pawn shop security guard joins with his taser to try to assist Officer Ivan K. However, Officer Ivan K. has no idea that the security guard is there at all. Henderson was hit by the taser from the security guard. As Henderson is hit with the taser, she moves slightly, still with the screwdriver in her hand. At the same time, Officer Ivan K. fires a shot, hitting her forearm and thumb, causing her to drop the screwdriver and to fall onto the ground. Keisha Henderson was taken to the local hospital immediately, where the gunshot wound to her arm was treated and she made a recovery.
So you can just blacken the screen, okay? So, Joe, so earlier you said that's the day that changed your life. What happened?
A lot. So, first, that was probably the saddest moment in my career.
Wait, and I want to this is before George Floyd
Yes.
happened. This is all before George Floyd's death. Okay.
It was because, like I said, nobody gets in this job, or I didn't get in this job to hurt somebody. And I pride myself on being able to talk people out of situations. And it got to the point where I knew I wasn't. And, you know, even when I was going through, because, I mean, I guess people don't understand. Once you do or have a shooting, and a lot of officers complain about this, but it's the reality of the situation. You become a suspect. You committed a crime. So you get interviewed, you go through this process, and you have the possibility of going to jail. So that hangs over your head. And so when I was getting interviewed, everybody wanted me to say that I was in fear for my safety. You know, I was in fear of getting great bodily harm or death. I knew that could happen. I knew that she could kill me or cause me great bodily harm. But I didn't feel fear. I felt sadness. And as you can see, I didn't know the security guard was there. And I think we both formally in our mind to pull our triggers at the same time. I mean, I guess being in Penn State, it gets cold here. You know, your hands are so cold and it's hard to bend them sometimes. That's what my fingers felt like. I couldn't pull the trigger. And I was just like, and boom, I pulled the trigger. And I didn't hear my gun go off. I heard the bzzz from the taser. So I was like, what? What was that?
But you said earlier that every day of your life you're thankful for that security guard.
Shooting somebody, hurting somebody, it had a grand impact on me overall anyway. I probably would have been a wreck if I killed her.
But she tried to kill you. She was trying to kill you.
Yeah, I mean, she was having a bad day. Yeah, I mean, she was intentionally trying to kill me. And like, it's funny because if you look at, it's the weirdness of police work. So last second I hear, I look and I'm like, oh shit, here it comes. Boom, she hits me. I start to run, and this is not the way it worked out in my brain. There's a total different scenario that I thought happened until I saw the video. You see me try to get my gun. I'm like, I don't have a chance for this. I keep running. I barely get out of the way of the car, and then I get my gun. And like I said, you hear all the people, shoot her, shoot her. It sounded like almost a chant to me, like, shoot her, shoot her. And I'm thinking, what? What are people like? Why would people want me to shoot her? Because right now she's in the car sitting there calm, and the threat's over again. Threat's gone. So now I'm like, hey, can we just take a breath? Can you turn off the car for me? And she's complying. And then she's like, you want me to turn off the car? I'm like, yes, please. Like literally, I'm like, yes, please. And she like turns off the car and she sits there and then she looks at me. All of a sudden she drops her hands real quick. And I'm thinking, yeah, she doesn't have a gun. You know, she would have been shooting people, not driving people over. So I wouldn't thought process. She comes back up and that's when she has a screwdriver in her hand. I'm like, all right, whatever. She's in a car. I'm here. I'm safe. No need to do anything now. Let's just take a breath and wait for the cavalry to come. Like, we have time. And then that's when she looks at me. I thought she was pinned in the car. I thought the other cars were blocking the door from my perspective, so I thought, she can't get out. And then she just looks at me square in the eye and says, yeah, you ain't gonna shoot me, and starts to open the door. And I'm barely standing. Like, I'm like, my legs are shaking. I'm doing everything in my power just to stay on my feet. So I'm like, ah. So now I got to walk around, and I put myself, like, there's the V of the car. I'm trying to keep her there because, you know, she's already determined that she's going to hurt somebody by hurting me. I had no clue she hurt other people. So I'm like, let me put myself in between her so she can't go hurt anybody else, and let me keep her there. And then, you know, like one of the questions they asked, why didn't you fight her? I had nothing in me. Like, I was barely standing. So, like, and that's what I think people don't understand. Every situation, everything's different. every situation is different for every police officer. Everything depends on the moment. Everything depends on how you feel. Everything is different. So even if I see a shooting, and because I'm a police officer, I might be able to piece more parts of the puzzle in my brain and sort of go, okay, I can think how that happened. You know, the way, you know, the Supreme Court defines it is like how the person felt with that many years of experience and that, you know, what's going on in that moment. So everything's different for everybody. So
Let me ask. But this you tried to go back to work. You took time off and then you tried to go back.
I was off for injuries for, see, this happened in April.
Wait, can you go to the next slide, by the way? So that's you in the hospital afterwards.
And
Yeah.
everybody always wondered. I smile at everything, by the way.
All right.
I was off because of injuries until October. I got cleared physically to go back to work, but not only, I knew I wasn't right. Like just, I was more anxious. Like emotions that I've had my whole life that I could be able to go, okay, and work my way through it, hit me like a shock, and I was reacting more like just more like intently to things. So I requested to go see a therapist, and the therapist's like, you ain't going back to work. He goes, you got to do this, that, and he put me through exercises, which like he put me in certain situations, and you know, like I said, there's this lovely part of everybody's brain, the amygdala, that's our fight or flight, and it fires when it thinks you're in a situation that's dangerous. So like I was going through a training thing where I just had to sit next to a car. And you don't see after the video, but when the first car showed up, like I'm like, you take her, and I just went and collapsed. And I'm just laying on the ground. And then somebody sat me up and I was leaning against a car on the ground. So that was part of the training where I had to sit next to a car. And I got in that position and my heart just started racing. Like I was wearing a heart monitor because I kept passing out after this. Like I was passing out, vertigo, I would pass out for no reason. I would just, like I was eating soup one day and I just passed out, you know? So it really had an impact on my life, like where I started to lose like independence. Like they wouldn't let me drive because I was passing out for, like, and it just, and cognitively, I couldn't remember things as easy. Like, and this is just like, trauma does weird, like you can't run from trauma. And it does things to everybody, and we try to work through it, and we get these things, and it really took a toll on me to where I didn't feel like I was the same person. Like I couldn't, like I broke my shoulder before, I tore my ACL, physical injuries I recovered from. When it was my brain, it hit me hard. It hit me, I mean.
So I think one of the, thanks for sharing, by the way. I mean, when I first asked you, I put that slide up, and I said, hey, you said that's the day that changed your life. What happened? And you immediately, the tears came, right? And I keep thinking to myself, why? This is a story, right? This is not everybody's story. Everyone's got a different story, but this is your story, and I felt the reason you're here is because I felt like I met you through Zoom, and I said, wow, I like this guy. I want to know more about his story. But like, people don't know this story. So like, what, those tears? Like, we just say, look, you're a big dude. You got a crew cut, you know.
I cut my own hair, by the way.
Yeah, all right. But you're like this cop. You're going to be a cop who's this dude that people are afraid of. But then this happened, and it broke you.
You know, it's weird. Okay, I don't know. I try to equate it to somebody experiencing the death of a loved one. And you know, there's times you hear that song, you smell that smell, you see that thing that sort of brings you back to that moment. There's times when I tell that story, it brings me back to that sadness. Like how sad, I mean, it was like a wave of sadness. Like it was incredible how sad I felt. Like, man, I'm going to hurt somebody.
Can we go into that? Because nobody sees cops. Look, this class is a place for people to tell stories that often aren't heard, that I think are actually more common than we imagine that they are. Because I've worked with a lot of police, and that's just not what you're saying right now. A lot of people would say, like, oh, but that's not the police I know. And I'm like, yeah, it's a lot of police you know. You just don't know it. And, like, can we, what's the sadness?
You know, I like I said, I don't think people get in this job to hurt people. We get in the job to protect people.
Some people,
Yeah. I mean,
maybe,
like I
but
said, I think it's very minute amount of number. And
look, wait, hang on. I want to say something here. You would know better than me, okay? I've met a lot of police in my life, and I've known police personally, but I don't work with them every single day.
Yeah.
And so you would know better than me the answer to that question. And you would know better than a lot of people who have this idea that police are these robots who are really, they get into police because they were failed athletes in high school or whatever, and they take steroids and they just want to go beat the shit out of people, like with the military, right? But you would know better than me. So,
I mean, like I said, there's probably, even those people, I think they think they're protecting the guy who doesn't have a voice. So they think they're doing it with a reason.
they're also afraid.
People are afraid. And I was telling him earlier, I used to watch this video called Raising Cain. It's about raising boys and raising mainly boys, and they'll say, like, when young men feel fear, feel sadness, feel any sort of way, they do this thing called with the face of a man, and they puff up, they put their chest out because, you know, society tells us we can't be vulnerable. I never subscribe to that. I think tears are powerful. I think tears, they make your skin look good. You know, I take pride in crying. I cry a lot more now. I have a weird sense of empathy. I cry all the time now. This thing impacted my life greatly. Not only my life, my wife's, people I knew. It impacted a lot of people's life. And I was blessed. There's this person I got to see speak. Her name's Ann Corzales. 2 days before this incident happened. And she talked about the impact her incident happened on her family. And she talked about how it just doesn't happen to you, it happens to a lot of people. I mean, it just happened to all of you. When you saw London get hit by the car, it just happened to everybody in this room.
And the people who knew her name, Keisha, right?
Yeah.
And the people who knew her, all of her family and all of her people.
So
Yeah.
it happened to everybody on the radio that day. So, and so I was able to see her, and she explained this. So, funny enough, that morning in our roll call, I was talking to the officers. So I was a sergeant at the time. And I said, hey guys and ladies, today we're going to practice. When we get into incidents, we're not just going to talk about our tactics and stuff. We're going to talk about how we are feeling, because it's important to break that down too and talk about it. So you're okay with that. When a real incident happens, you're okay about talking about your feelings. And 4 hours later, I had to put my money where my mouth was.
And it changed your life in a way that you never could have anticipated.
So, we were talking about earlier, like my brain, I was in pain all the time. And I had a lot of urges to kill myself. I would drive down the street on 2-lane roads, and there'd be a truck on the other side, and I had to fight every ounce of my body not to turn in front of those trucks. you know, like I remember one time I was on a trip and my wife was in the car and we're driving, she's sleeping in the car, and I'm just like, I want to, and it's like an urge that comes over you, and I'm like, oh, I can't kill her, I can't do that to my mom. And then she wakes up and she's like, what's going on? I'm like, oh, I'm just trying not to kill us. You know, and she's like, what? You know, so she's like, I guess I should stay awake and talk to you. You know, I was so open with it. I think people are like, hey, is he really trying to, like, yeah, he's not going to do it. But there were days, like, I was going through so much anxiety. I always felt like I was having, like, a heart attack, and, like, my arm would hurt. And I would take my car and park it into the deep sections of our parking garage and just lean my seat back and say, I don't want anybody to save me. If I'm going to have a heart attack, it's going to happen. And I'm done. I can't live like this anymore. I'm in pain. My brain's not working. I'm not the person I was. And I struggled for years. I don't struggle as much. I mean, there's probably still days.
No, but then here you are, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mostly it's a service to, first off, the purpose of this class, more than anything else, and I'm getting ready to come to you two gentlemen next. The purpose of this class, more than anything else, is to see the world through the eyes of somebody else. Sometimes another group, but really just another person. And so to imagine that here's this cop who would go through this and would respond the way you're responding. It's like it's a service to people.
And I think that's why I connected with your class so much, because you get people to open their eyes. Because one of the things that, actually, nobody knows what triggers them till what triggers them.
Yeah.
I would watch other incidents of police shootings and stuff, and people jump let's jump to conclusion of what we think happened. And I'm like, you don't know what happened. I mean, you can watch the news stories and people talk about what happened with me, and the stories are wrong. Like, they interviewed a guy, he said, yeah, when she got on the ground, he shot her 4 more times. I mean, like, nobody knows what happened. So, you know, I'm just like, take a breath. Let's give people a chance to figure out what goes on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's really gentlemen. No, I hear that. This is I don't want to actually downplay this. Like, what the man, it's just, what question do you have? What kind of question do you have for them?
So I know a lot about policing. It's like, can't really talk about your emotions. It's more like a macho man, like they have around there. Like, you don't go to therapists, you don't talk about what happened. And like, how did your other officers feel about like you talking about your feelings and everything?
Well, he is retired.
Yeah, well, even then, because I did it. I did it then. I did it after the incident. I went and talked about it. You know, for me, I lived a lot of life of, oh, that's Joe. I think I was sort of always outside the box. So for me, it was like, it was sort of natural. I was also fortunate because I was at the end of my career when this happened. I was getting ready. Retirement was in the distance. I was able to be more truthful about it, because when things like, okay, so there's laws and stuff that allow people to carry guns anywhere across the state, federal laws and stuff. And because part of my retirement package had PTSD, I can't carry a gun. Cops are weirdly attached to their guns. Me, I don't like guns. The only gun I've ever had was the one they issued to me at work. And when I retired, I said, here you go. I don't own any guns. I don't like guns. It was an equipment I used at work. So I'm sort of an outlier on that in police world anyway. Like, people talking about guns, I'm like,
Although there are other people like you.
yeah, there are, but
And so it's outliers.
Yeah.
But yeah.
so
And so, you know, that's what keeps police from doing the work that they need to do, the psychological work, the therapy work. So you're not, and that's why suicide rates are so high.
and
among
people
police.
don't know how to react to it. It's an injury you can't see.
Yeah.
People
yeah.
don't know what to do with it. So like, Okay, so my last day of my career, I was so trauma hits people like down the road. Like you could be fine, you're like, hey, I'm cool, and then like a year later, bam. So basically what happens is you get in a traumatic incident, they always say your glass is full, but then life happens. So now you're filling into something that's not full. I mean, you're spilling over. So about a year later, I was in an indoor position, basically because, like I said, everything became different for me. Things that I responded to easily for 25 years, I had to like be like, oh wait, I got to go do that. Like I had to think through things through. Once again, sports analogy, the difference between, being on your toes and ready or being flat-footed and having taken 2 moves to go. I had to make 2 moves to do everything. So and nobody noticed it, I did, but people didn't notice it, So I was in a place and I noticed conflict was really having really built up anxiety for me. So I was in a spot and there was just issues with different things and it was just building up, and I had a project I needed to get done. So I was at home trying to finish it, and my whole body just shut down. I couldn't think. I couldn't comprehend everything I read. I was just had a computer on my lap and just stared at a screen all night. I couldn't sleep. I was just like, so the next morning I had to go to work. So I got up and I went to go take a shower. And my wife came in, she goes, what are you doing? You didn't sleep? You don't go to work. And I'm like, I got to go to work. There's nobody else there. I got to do the job. And she's like, don't go to work. And I remember just yelling at her saying like, I don't need you to be part of this problem today. I need you just to back off. I got enough going on. And I got dressed and I got in the car and I started driving to work. And I just broke down. Because, that's my number one. She's the one who notices everything before I do. She's my ride or die. She's there no matter what. And I thought, what am I doing? So I get to work and I write this big old long letter. And funny enough, I had a conversation with one of my supervisors just 2 days before saying, hey, I'm overwhelmed. I'm having trouble. And there was an email thread going on. And this is what caused my response with the letter. Because he said, why don't you tell me how you really feel? And I laid it out. Like this, that, people are overwhelmed. We had 2 officers that died by suicide earlier in the year. I go, we had these 2 guys, nobody did anything then. People just aren't doing anything. And he read that and sent me home and I never worked again.
Man, dude.
I mean, and that's the problem because I'm at the end of my career. I don't work again. I'm on the books for a little bit. I have illness. I retire. You have 10, 20 years left. You can't do that.
You would have been one of those guys who just sticks it out.
Yeah, you have to because
Yeah.
one is an injury you can't see. People don't deal with it. People don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
There's so many. So it's a problem. It's a problem in law enforcement, which is why suicide rates are so high.
And why so often the way officers engage citizens is very troubling and very problematic. Yeah. Beck, when you listen to him talk and you think about you wanting to, be in law enforcement, like what comes to mind for you? Like what do you?
A lot of his story and like what he talks about reminds me of my family. And what my dad's gone through with what he's seen and what he's done. But
And what do you wish people understood from the son of somebody and also someone who wants to get into law enforcement? What do you wish people understood about just that law enforcement and the career?
it's a big job. You got a lot to do, and half the time you're a police officer, half the time you're a social worker, and then you got to go home and be a parent, a husband, a wife, do whatever. And they see a lot of stuff that a lot of people shouldn't see, and it's just a difficult job that a lot of people don't understand.
Did you talk to your dad a lot about stuff that he saw, or did he bottle it up, or just not share it with you? Let me say, maybe not bottle it up, or just not share it with you.
He answers questions that my brother and I would ask, but as we get older, he shares more and more.
Yeah. How about you? Did your dad talk?
My dad like never really talked about it at all. He like just kept it to himself. Like even like he only told me one story about him like getting like a knife pointed like at him, and that's like he never told me that end of that story. He also has like, not gonna say he has like mental problems, but like, you know, being a police officer really wears you down and hardens you. And once you reach that point, it's like you feel like you're just alone and no one else is like on your side, and it just like gets really hard.
So when you hear Joe talking, and you think about that, what are you most concerned about for your own future?
Just like being able to talk about like my feelings. I feel like it's a real big problem in the police culture right now, is not being able to talk to your brothers and like your people who you work with about like what's going on inside your head, because no one can see it, only you can like think about it. And I don't know, it's just scary, the amount of like suicides you see among police. That's just it's a big statistic out there.
Hey, and by the way, I want to just re-emphasize here, we do a lot of classes. We do 60 different classes every year, and over the course of 5 years, let's say, that's 300 classes, and they're all different. And we've had a lot of classes where we talk about, many classes where we talk about the violence that police have done to people, and people tell their stories. This just isn't that class. So if you're sitting here thinking, oh, you should talk about all the things the shitty things that police do, that's another class, y'all. Like you don't do it all here. This is one single class. This is the story of one police officer. So I just want to really reemphasize that, especially anybody watching the video, that's really important. Do you have a question for Joe that you want to ask, that you've been sitting here with, or?
After all of the stuff you've struggled with after that date, is there anything you could say to anybody that's put in your position of how you can possibly deal with something like that?
You know, you got to be comfortable talking about it. You got to recognize, I'm probably overly self-reflective, and like when I feel something or I'm triggered, I try to work my way backwards to figure out what's actually triggering me. And one, breathe through everything. Breathing saved me. And really try to retrain your mind. So like when I still see Chevy Avalanches, my heart races. And for the last 6 months or so, I was really trying to every time I see a Chevy Avalanche, I just try to retrain my brain like I saved lives that day. I try to make it more positive instead of that's ran me over. So I just try to change my thought process about everything. And you really got to work. You got to do the work.
Yeah, I think that's I think when I stand here with you, right, you two guys, we look out over this classroom, and I think about all the different traumas that people just in here have experienced, and they're not talking about it. They're not engaging. You know, just like Irvin could tell you stories about how the police treated him when he was young. Police were different in Philadelphia back then, man. This guy has stories about racist police.
Yeah, and like I said, it goes back. There was a book, like I said, the book I read, The Body Keeps the Score.
Body Keeps the Score, about trauma.
Yeah, people don't even realize they have trauma. So they're reacting to things and triggered by things they don't even know.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know. Everybody needs some grace.
Yeah, thanks, man. That's actually that's a beautiful final word. Everybody needs some grace. Yeah. Dude, thanks, man. Yeah. Hey, if you have some questions hey, gentlemen, thanks for volunteering. I know that we didn't integrate you as much into the class as we typically would, but I felt like it was really important to have you up here. So thanks for being up here. All right.